The Sands Hotel and Casino, Las Vegas, December 1954, Saturday night midnight show. Nat King Cole walked off stage to thunderous applause. He just performed for a packed house, won 200 people, every seat filled, standing ovation. 2 encores. The crowd had been electric. Women in evening gowns, men in tuxedos, champagne flowing. High rollers at the front tables dropping thousands on drinks and gambling between songs. The casino had made a fortune that night. Cover charges at $50 per person, premium drinks, and the real money came after the show, the gambling. Nat's name on the marquee brought in serious money. Oil executives from Texas, movie producers from Los Angeles, East Coast businessmen, the kind of people who'd drop $5,000 at the craps table without blinking. Nat had delivered, that was his job. Make them feel sophisticated, make them feel like they were part of something elegant, make them spend money. He headed toward the dressing room. A security guard stopped him at the door to the main casino floor. "Sir, you'll need to use the service entrance to leave." Nat looked at the guard, young, white, probably didn't even recognize him out of his performance clothes, just following orders. Then Nat looked past him at the casino floor beyond. White guests were walking freely, gambling, drinking, laughing. Some of them had been at his show. Some of them had given him a standing ovation 20 minutes ago. Now they walked through doors he couldn't use. He just made the Sands tens of thousands of dollars tonight, maybe more, but he couldn't walk through the same doors as the people who'd paid to see him. "I know the rules," Nat said quietly. He turned and walked down the narrow service corridor, past the kitchen where black cooks prepared meals for white diners, past the laundry where black workers cleaned sheets for white guests, past the loading dock where deliveries came in, out the back door into the alley where his car was parked, away from the lights, away from the glamour, away from the America that loved his voice but not his presence. This was Las Vegas in 1954. And Nat King Cole was about to make a deal with organized crime that would change everything. Before we dive into the story of how mob bosses gave Nat full access to Vegas hotels and casinos before the Civil Rights Act, how the mafia broke the color line that legitimate American businesses refused to cross, and how criminals proved more progressive than the so-called respectable establishment, let me ask, where are you watching from? Drop a comment, because this story about morality, power, and who actually treated black Americans with dignity is going to flip everything you thought you knew about the 1950s. Las Vegas in the early 1950s was the entertainment capital of America. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Nat King Cole, the biggest names in show business all performed there. The casinos paid top dollar. The audiences were sophisticated. Vegas was where careers were made. But Las Vegas had rules, unwritten but absolute. Black performers could perform on stage, but they couldn't stay in the hotels where they performed, couldn't eat in the restaurants, couldn't gamble in the casinos, couldn't use the swimming pools, couldn't walk through the front entrance. After their shows, they had to leave, drive west on Highway 95 to the west side, the segregated section of Las Vegas where black people were allowed to live, stay in the small motels there, eat in the handful of restaurants that would serve them, and return the next night to perform for white audiences who would never socialize with them as equals. This wasn't the Deep South, this was Nevada, a western state, a place that liked to think of itself as progressive. But the money flowing through Vegas came from wealthy white tourists who expected segregation, and the casino owners weren't going to lose that money by integrating. Nat King Cole knew these rules intimately. He'd been performing in Vegas since 1947. The last frontier, the Flamingo, the Sands, always the same routine: perform, get paid, leave through the service entrance, drive to the west side, sleep in a segregated motel, return the next night. He hated it, but what choice did he have? Vegas paid better than anywhere else. His contract at the Sands was worth $25, $0 per week, nearly $300, $0 in today's money. For a black performer in 1954, that was extraordinary money. But the humiliation wore on him. Maria Cole, his wife, came with him on some Vegas trips. She saw it firsthand. Saw him perform for adoring crowds, then get escorted out the back door like he was contaminating the building. Saw the white performers, Sinatra, Martin, the others, staying in luxury suites while Nat drove to the west side. "Why do you keep coming back here?" she asked after one particularly degrading night. "Because they pay," Nat said, "and because walking away means they win. They're already winning, you're making the money, and they're treating you like what I am, a Negro in America. Vegas isn't different, it's just more honest about it." But Nat was tired of honesty without dignity. In December 1954, something happened that forced the issue. Sammy Davis, Jr., was performing at the New Frontier. He was at the peak of his powers, singing, dancing, doing impressions, playing multiple instruments. The crowds loved him. He was making the New Frontier serious money. After his show one night, exhausted and ready to collapse, he tried to stay in the hotel. He'd been given permission, or so he thought. Someone in management had told him it would be fine, just this once. Given his draw, given how much money he was making them, surely they could make an exception. But when he showed up at the front desk at 2:00 a.m., still in his stage clothes, the night clerk refused to give him a key. "We don't have accommodations for you, Mr. Davis. I was told I could stay here. Someone in management approved it. Whoever told you that was mistaken. We don't have rooms available for you. You have 300 rooms in this hotel. I can see empty key slots behind you. You have rooms. You just won't give me one." The clerk's face hardened. "That's correct, sir. I suggest you find accommodations elsewhere." Sammy stood there, exhausted from 3 shows, dressed in an expensive suit that cost more than the clerk made in a month, carrying enough cash in his pocket to buy half the rooms in the hotel, and was told there was no room for him. Other guests were checking in around him, watching. Some looked embarrassed, most looked away. Nobody said anything. Sammy left through the front door, at least. They let him do that and drove to the west side, to the segregated motels, to the place where black performers belonged. He called Nat that night, furious and humiliated. They did it at the front desk, in front of everyone, made sure everyone saw, made sure I knew my place, and I can't do anything about it because if I cause a scene, they'll blacklist me. We're trapped. Nat listened. He'd experienced the same humiliation dozens of times. But hearing it in Sammy's voice, the anger, the helplessness, crystallized something for him. He hung up the phone and made a decision. He was done being trapped. The Sands Hotel was owned on paper by a group of Texas investors, but everyone in Vegas knew the real owners were mob figures. Meyer Lansky controlled the money. Modalitz ran operations. These were men who'd built fortunes through bootlegging, gambling, and extortion during Prohibition. They weren't respectable. They were criminals, but they were also businessmen, and Nat King Cole was good for business. Nat requested a meeting with Jack Entratter, the Sands entertainment director. Entratter was connected to Frank Costello's organization in New York. He had the authority to make decisions, but more importantly, he had the mob's ear. They met in Entratter's office in January 1955. Nat came alone, no lawyers, no agents, just him and Entratter. "Jack, I want to talk about the accommodations policy." Entratter leaned back. "Nat, you know how it is. The guests expect to see me perform. They pay good money for that. I make the Sands a lot of money. But after I perform, you make me leave like I'm contaminating the place. I'm tired of it. It's not personal. It's business. We can't afford to lose white customers by integrating." "You won't lose customers. My shows are sold out. People come here to see me. If anything, treating me with basic dignity might bring in more business. Progressive people, liberal types who have money to spend." Entratter was quiet for a moment. "What are you asking for?" "Full access, a suite in the hotel, permission to eat in any restaurant. Permission to walk through the front entrance. Permission to gamble if I want to. Same treatment as any white performer." "Nat, I can't just change the policy for you. That would cause problems. Then I won't perform here anymore. I'll take my contract to the Riviera or the Sahara. Someone will give me what I'm asking for and they'll make the money instead of you." Entratter understood leverage. Nat King Cole walking away from the Sands would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. But breaking segregation could cost them white customers. "Let me talk to some people," Entratter said. A week later, Nat got a message. Meyer Lansky wanted to meet him. Meyer Lansky was, by 1955, one of the most powerful organized crime figures in America. He'd helped create the National Crime Syndicate. He'd laundered money through Cuba and the Bahamas. He'd helped build Las Vegas into what it was, and he controlled significant portions of the Sands operations. They met in a private dining room at the Sands, just the two of them. No bodyguards visible, though Nat assumed they were nearby. Lansky was polite, soft-spoken. He didn't look like a gangster. He looked like an accountant. "Mr. Cole," Jack tells me, "you're unhappy with your treatment here. I'm unhappy with being treated like I'm not good enough to stay in the same building where I perform. I understand, it's degrading, but you have to understand the position we're in. Our customers expect certain standards. If we integrate, some of them will stop coming. And if I stop performing, you lose more money than you'd lose from a few racist customers leaving. Lansky smiled slightly. That's true. You're very valuable to us, which is why we need to figure this out. It's simple. Treat me like you treat Sinatra. I perform, I stay in a suite, I eat where I want, I come and go through the front door. That's all I'm asking. It's not simple. There are other hotels watching. If we integrate, they'll have to decide whether to follow or to use our integration against us. Come to the Riviera where we still maintain standards. You see the problem. I see a business decision. You make more money with me here, treated with dignity, than without me. Everything else is noise. Lansky studied Nat for a long moment, then he nodded. Here's what I'll do. You'll get full access, suite, restaurants, front entrance, everything, but we'll do it quietly. No press releases, no announcements. You just start doing it. And if anyone asks, we'll say you're a special guest of management, not a policy change, just an exception for Nat King Cole. Why not change the policy for everyone? Because I don't control everyone, I control the sands, one step at a time, Mr. Cole. Nat understood. This wasn't morality, this was business. Lansky didn't care about civil rights. He cared about profit, but profit with dignity was better than profit with humiliation. One more thing, Lansky added. You understand who you're dealing with. We're not the NAACP. We're not activists. We're businessmen who happen to operate outside the law. If you accept our terms, you accept that association. I'm not looking for moral allies, Nat said. I'm looking for basic respect. If I have to get that from the mob instead of from legitimate society, so be it. Lansky extended his hand. Nat shook it. The next night, Nat King Cole walked through the front entrance of the Sands Hotel. He checked into a suite on the same floor as Frank Sinatra. He ate dinner in the Garden Room restaurant. He gambled a few hands of blackjack at a table in the main casino. Some white guests stared. A few complained to management. They were told politely that Mr. Cole was a special guest and that if they were uncomfortable, other hotels might suit them better. Most didn't leave, because the truth was most people didn't care as much as the segregationists claimed. Most people came to Vegas to gamble and see shows, not to enforce Jim Crow. Within a month, Mo Dalitz, another mob figure who controlled the Desert Inn, gave similar access to Sammy Davis Jr. Within 6 months, several Vegas hotels had quietly integrated for their top black performers. Not for black customers generally, not yet, but for the performers who made the money, the color line was erased. It would be nearly a decade before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 forced legitimate businesses across America to integrate. But in Las Vegas in 1955, organized crime did it first, not because they believed in equality. Because they believed in money, and Nat King Cole made them a lot of it. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Frank Sinatra, who'd been advocating for integration for years, watched the mob break barriers that respectable society refused to cross. You know what the crazy thing is? Sinatra said to Nat one night at the Sands bar, "These guys, Lansky, Dalitz, and Tratter, they're criminals. They've killed people. They've broken every law. But when it comes to treating you like a human being, they're ahead of banks, corporations, universities, the federal government. What does that say about America?" "It says morality and legality aren't the same thing," Nat replied. "And sometimes the criminals understand capitalism better than the capitalists." Maria was conflicted about the arrangement. She understood why Nat did it, but she worried about the association. "You're making a deal with murderers," she said. "I'm making a deal with the only people willing to treat me with dignity," Nat corrected. "The legitimate world wants my talent but not my presence. The mob wants my talent and will let me walk through the front door. I'll take the front door." The arrangement lasted throughout the late 1950s and into the 1960s. Nat performed regularly in Vegas, stayed in luxury suites, ate in fine restaurants, walked through front entrances, was treated in that narrow slice of American geography as an equal, and the mob made millions off him, which was the point. They didn't integrate out of ideology. They integrated because segregation was costing them money. By 1960, Vegas was the most integrated city in entertainment, not because the city was progressive, because the criminals who ran it were pragmatic. When the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964, Vegas hotels were forced to integrate officially. But for many of them, especially the mob-controlled ones, it was just making legal what they'd already been doing for years. Nat King Cole died in 1965, a year after the Civil Rights Act became law. He'd spent the last decade of his life being treated with more dignity by organized crime than by most of legitimate American society. At his funeral, Frank Sinatra delivered part of the eulogy. He mentioned Vegas, mentioned the fight for respect, mentioned the strange fact that the mob had done more for Nat's dignity than presidents, governors, or business leaders. He shouldn't have had to make that deal, Sinatra said, but I'm glad someone was willing to make it. Even if they were gangsters, looking back now, the Vegas story is uncomfortable. It doesn't fit neat narratives about good and bad, legal and illegal, moral and immoral. The mob were criminals. They murdered people. They extorted businesses. They corrupted politicians. They destroyed lives. Nothing about their access deal with Nat King Cole makes them heroes. But they did something legitimate society refused to do. They treated a black man with basic dignity because it made them money. And in 1955, that was more than most of respectable America was willing to do. The moral inversion is jarring. The people breaking the law were more progressive than the people making it. The criminals understood equality better than the establishment. The gangsters offered respect that senators wouldn't. What does that say about America in the 1950s? That organized crime was good? No, that legitimate society was worse. In this one specific way, yes, Nat King Cole made a calculated decision. He chose money and dignity from criminals over money and humiliation from respectable society. He chose to walk through the front door of a mob-owned casino rather than the service entrance of a legally operated hotel. Was he right to make that choice? Maria wasn't sure. Nat himself wasn't sure, but he made it anyway. Because at some point, dignity matters more than morality. Being treated as human matters more than who's doing the treating. The Sands Hotel closed in 1996. The building was imploded to make way for the Venetian. Meyer Lansky died in 1983. Modalitz died in 1989. All the mob figures who ran 1950s Vegas are gone now. But the story remains. The story of a black entertainer who got more respect from organized crime than from the United States of America, who walked through a front door held open by a murderer because legitimate society wouldn't open it at all. That's the uncomfortable truth Nat King Cole lived with, and the question he left behind: what does it mean when criminals treat you better than your own country?